Hey guys, what I'm going over right now is a 2009 Honda Civic. It is the four-door. The four-door is important for certain reasons in a minute. What we're looking at today is a Civic that I have that has almost 120,000 miles. It has hail damage, and the damage cracked the wiper cowl, as you can see in the picture. I did already do this assembly once, this repair once, replacement once. I went to LKQ to find the cowl, pulled a cowl, installed the cowl, and this is the cowl that I installed. I'll show you how I did this, but for now I'm just letting you know you cannot put a two-door Honda Civic wiper cowl on this. It has to be a four. As you can see, these don't line up. The wiper cowl is narrower vertically in the picture here than the side cowl part, and there's some weird tabs that are on the inside that didn't line up. I had already taken the original wiper cowl off, so I just needed to go ahead and put this one on that I had gotten from LKQ. It was about 13 bucks. The $13 is important because the wiper cowl, if you were to buy it from Honda, could be upwards of $333, and I'll put that link in the description. The wiper cowl from eBay is about $165, but if you can find it at a local junkyard like LKQ, you can go and pick your part. It was $13, so that's so much less expensive. So here's how you want to take this off. You want to there's three little clips in here. I use the body type separator that use on bodywork that pulls little Christmas trees out of door panels and stuff. I just wedge that in there and pull these three little tabs out that are in this location on the top side of the there's a little lip that you can see in the where the little three arrows are, and there's three little plastic clips there that you need to pull off. Once you take those clips off, you're going to just pull up on the sides, on the left and right side, right at the front edge of the plastic, and that's going to release right pretty much where these arrows are. That's going to release the front edge. You can actually feel these little clips that go around the metal flange that's underneath the wiper cowl. And once you get the front edge unhooked, then just pull on the left and right side and the clips will come undone. You can actually twist the wiper cowl motors to where the wipers will get out of the way. There's two locations to put your hood latch. Just put it at the location that holds the hood as high as you can. So you want to pop the hood, put the hood up all the way as far as you can, as you can see in the picture, and then pull the wipers up and then turn the motors on the wipers so that the arms of the wipers get out of the way. You undo the front edge once you take the three little clips out. And then once you've got the front edge undone, just pull up on the left and right side and in the middle. Once you flip it over, you can see there's actually just little press in place clips. Sometimes they'll break, so once you get the replacement from LKQ, it's useful to just reuse it. Once the wiper cowl's off, as you can see in this picture, there's a big metal flange underneath here. So you don't have to take this off if you're just doing a wiper cowl replacement, which I was doing, but as I mentioned, this is a double job. I'm actually going to go ahead and take this metal flange off, and that's going to give me room to get behind the motor to get to the, it's actually called the V-tec Solenoid, even though this is not the V-tec engine. The V-tec Solenoid has a gasket on it that I have seen on other videos of this car that's a common leak, so I used my little mirror and got back in there, and I did verify that the V-tec Solenoid gasket is leaking. I think it's a $15 part that I bought on Amazon. The link will be in the description. Here is a little bit closer up of that metal plate so that you can see kind of where it's at. Now you can tell between the top of the motor where the oil the oil cap is, where you pour in oil on the left side of the motor, just left of the Honda logo. You can see there's only a couple inches, and a lot of people have videos where they're actually forcing their hand between here, but they don't realize that this whole metal plate on here, if you took it out, will give you about 8 inches of clearance. It's way easier to get into. You can almost get in directly from the top of the back of the motor. So this cover itself, this metal plate anyway, has 9 bolts total. They're 10 and 12 millimeter. As you can see in a closer-up of this picture, I've already taken one out that's right there by that hose. The hose is attached to the back of the wiper cowl. You do have to pull that hose off. And the 2 bolts that are in the back, you can see one looks rusty and one's actually metal. Those are 12 millimeter. And so in those, once you get, those are the same on both sides. There's a 10 in the front and the 2 12s in the back. Those are on both sides. It's the same exact bolts on both sides. And then in these, where these 3 arrows are, it's kind of under the lip of the, where the windshield attaches to the body and the top of this metal panel that we're trying to pull off. There are 3 more bolts, and they're kind of deep, so you got to put an extension on a socket. If you drop them, they're kind of hard to get to. So I put a little magnet adapter on the end of my socket so that it magnetizes the socket, so I don't have to worry about dropping the bolts. But those are 10 millimeter bolts as well. And so you can see in this picture, I kind of broke it down a little better. There's a 10 millimeter that was in the front, I already took out, and then there's the 12 millimeter, the 2 in the back. So that's what it looks like on both sides. And so I'm getting into taking the bolts out of the solenoid gasket. As you can see, I've got 3. The 3 long ones are the same size, and then there's a short one. The short one actually holds a little metal bracket on. There are 2 electronic connectors that are on the VTec solenoid. You need to undo those. One is the actual actuator, the electronics for the VTec solenoid itself, and the other is a it's an electronic connector which is for the oil pressure sensor, I believe. So as you can see, I've got the connector at the top, the gray connector going into the gray. That's one of the connectors that you have to undo. It's just a little tab. You put your finger on the back, the side that's facing down on the gray connector, and that unclips it. And then the other one is further down. It's kind of harder to see. I don't think I have a picture of it that's well enough for you to tell. But there's also this green piece on the right side of the picture here. That if you just undo that, it's got a little clip on it. It just clips onto this little metal bracket that's bolted to the V-tec solenoid. And so if you just undo that, it just makes it a lot easier to get into. You just take those. I take those 4 bolts off, the 3 long ones and then the short one. This is the new gasket, and I've got the link in the description. This is the one that came from Amazon. So this gasket has this little screen filter that you can see in the picture, and there's actually a groove on the inside of the rubber, and that metal on the edge of the screen actually needs to fit into that groove, so make sure you put that in there. It cannot just sit like it's sitting in a cup. There's the VTec solenoid pulled out, got it all cleaned off. You want to make sure that surface is really clean on the actual on the VTec solenoid itself. You can see the old gasket here. There's the old gasket, and it's hardened and crusty, and it's cracked a couple times from taking it out. But where it's warped around that screen is more than likely on the right side. That's where it looks like it's been leaking. The heat from the hot oil getting past it kind of warped the edge of the rubber. So hopefully the new replacement won't have that issue. It's an aftermarket one. It's not a Honda part. It's not a Dorman part. I don't even remember the name of the brand, but it'll be in the link in the description from Amazon. So that's what your oil leak is coming from. Most commonly on the passenger side. You can look up underneath, and I believe it's I think it's a motor mount maybe that's on the bottom. There's like a rubber mount that's on the bottom that on this car in particular was wet. This car was never actually dripping oil onto the driveway, and it wasn't ever losing enough oil that it would the oil would need to be topped off between oil changes. If you change the oil every 5,000 miles, it never lost enough oil to have a problem. But that's pretty much the process of needing to replace the gasket. And so everything from here on out is pretty much just in reverse. And so, you put the 4 bolts back in once you put the gasket in place. Make sure you go, and I actually used a razor and kind of clean up the face of the back of the motor before I put the VTec solenoid with the gasket in place back on. If you note the orientation of the gasket when you take it out of the car on the VTec solenoid, then it's easier to tell. But there's a groove that's inside the VTec solenoid, and that new gasket's going to fit right in it, so you can pretty much tell which direction it goes. The cut the little filter, as you can see in the picture, has to go a certain way, keep that in the same orientation. And then it's just a matter of putting that metal flange back in. Just put all 9 bolts back in, the 4 12mm, and then the remaining 5 10mm. And there is a torque spec on the V-tec solenoid gasket. I can't remember what it is in foot-pounds, but I'll look that up and add that to the description later. And then putting the wiper cowl back on, go ahead and plug in the washer hose that's coming from the passenger side under the passenger side corner cowl. Connect the wiper hose back together, flip the wiper cowl back over, get the front edge of pop the top facing the window, pop the top of the wiper cowl back in on the middle first, and then on each side, left and right, and get it to clip back into place. And then make sure the front edge where these arrows are, make sure that edge, those little clips, go back around the metal flange that you just bolted back in. And then put your little 3 retaining clips. They're not really Christmas trees, they're like little flat buttons with a little tab that goes through the plastic and into the metal. They can get damaged, so when I went to get my wiper cowl from LKQ, I did go ahead and grab the ones that I pulled off that car, and I went ahead and, because I kind of cracked one of those, I went ahead and grabbed another couple off of another car while I was there. So now you can tell with everything back in place on the wiper cowl that I bought for the 4-door. I believe it's 2006 to 2010 is the same. I don't know if it goes any further up. I don't believe it goes any further down, though. I think a 2005 is a different body style. So you have to make sure this is 4-door. If you get a part in, you can actually look, if you flip this thing over horizontally, if you flip the wiper cowl over horizontally, on the inside edge on the right side, you will see, it looks almost engraved, or like somebody used a plastic pen, and it says 2D or 4D. So if it's 2D, it will not work on a 4-door. I made the mistake, as I said in the beginning of this video, where I actually pulled the wiper cowl from a 2-door, not even looking to see if it was a 4-door, just figuring because it was a 2008 or a 2010, I figured it was the same year. So the first car I picked off was a 2008 or 2010 that was a 2-door, and then the car that I ended up going back to was either a 2008 or 2010, I can't remember which, but they're all the same as far as the, being a Honda Civic, but you have to make sure it's a 4-door. So now you can see that it actually fits. The plastic lines up, all the clips line up. You don't have to mess with any clips to get it to fit into place. The little rubber drip catch, kind of, it's almost like a gasket that goes up to the hood. That kind of gets pulled up from the left and right side cowl, so you want to push that down. And then, if you want to, before you get this thing completely attached, when you put the hose together, you can go ahead and go in and press your wiper actuator to get your wiper fluid to come out, and just make sure that it works. And then that way, if the little wiper nozzles are clogged, you can go ahead and clean them out before you bolt all this back in. But on this one, when I went to pick up this one from the LKQ over by me, as you can tell, right up on the corner, right up at where the wiper arm is itself, by that big round tab on the driver's side corner cowl, there was this little tiny corner that was cracked. It was that way because whoever got to the car before me pulled that corner cowl underneath the wiper arm off first, and you can't do that. You got to pull the wiper cowl in the center out first because it goes over the top. So they pulled the corner cowl out, and it cracked the little corner on the mine. Well, you can't really see it. It's kind of under the wiper motor when the wiper arm is down. Well, not the wiper motor, but when the wiper arm is down, you can't really see the crack anyway. It doesn't have any effect on the car. You're not really going to notice it, but this is way better than the one that I had that you saw in the beginning of the video that had that big, huge crack in it. So I think this is a better fit, better fix, and looks a lot better. And we've run the car now for a number of miles and haven't had any of the oil leaking. We went ahead and, once we got the car together, checked to see if there was any oil leaking on the new gasket, and then we washed the motor down real good and washed the back of the motor and some of the frame and stuff underneath on the back side where the oil had been leaking a little bit. Tried to clean it up as much as possible so that we could see if there were any new oil coming out. And up to this point, we haven't noticed any new oil, so it'll actually be making a big trip this weekend and get a number of miles on it, and probably a 3-hour round trip, and that'll probably be a telltale. We'll get a chance to just make sure once it's been worked in and warm for a long period of time that everything's fine. But that's pretty much the end of this video. I just wanted to combine removing the wiper cowl, replacing the wiper cowl, also at the same time, because you have the wiper cowl off, it's a lot easier to go ahead and take that metal baffle off, that metal flange that's under the wiper cowl, and that makes it so much easier to get to doing the V-tec solenoid gasket. So this is kind of a combo video. I hope people can kind of sift through the video if you're just trying to do your wiper cowl or if you're just trying to do the V-tec solenoid gasket. But 2009 Honda Civic, we've got the V-tec solenoid gasket replaced, and we replaced the wiper cowl, so we're good to go.